Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and today we're back with Listmas 2022 and specifically Day 4 featuring my buddy Tim from Coasters and Cosplays as we count down our top 10 kiddie coasters. Yeah, that's right, we're changing pace with these lists a little bit and ranking some rides that aren't exactly made for us anymore. And you may be asking, well, what technically counts as a kiddie coaster? Tim and I both agreed that it should be under 20 feet tall and slower than 20 miles an hour. And with those parameters, we were able to make this top 10 list. Now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to him so we can get this list started.
Thanks for having me on, Drew. Hey everyone, my name's Tim, and I just started my channel up a few months ago. And I've been covering the construction progress of Mattel Adventure Park out here in Glendale, Arizona. Starting off this list at number 10, we have Daddy Pig's Roller Coaster, which is at Peppa Pig Theme Park in Winter Haven, Florida, and part of the Legoland Florida Resort. I wasn't really expecting a whole bunch from this coaster, but it actually kind of surprised me. The first half was pretty typical and nothing to write home about, but then the tire-driven launch that starts the second half of the ride was actually a lot more forceful than I was expecting. While I wouldn't recommend paying a single day ticket price, which last I checked was like $35, just to go get this credit, if you happen to find yourself able to get in for a discounted rate, and you can put up with the Peppa Pig theme song being on repeat what feels like every 5 minutes, I do think it's worth the ride at least once.
Coming in at number 9, we're going to be heading to Florida, specifically to Orlando and Fun Spot America Orlando for Sea Serpent. This E&F Myler kiddie coaster is just a heck of a lot of fun, and I will say this is going to be a common theme on my list. Lots of E&F Myler coasters. This ride is kind of towards the middle back section of the park and features some nice theming. There's even a little statue of a hippo and a cool sign. But this ride, if you're sitting in the very front or the very back, can give you some violent airtime as well as some great lateral forces coming down that drop. This thing is very, very short, even for a kiddie coaster standard, but I will say it is super fun, and if you have that all-day wristband, might as well get a couple laps in on it anyway. But with that, let's head to number 8.
Next up, we head to my home state, and actually the closest roller coaster to where I live. And that's the Gravity Roller Coaster at Schnepp Farms in Queen Creek, Arizona. This E&F Myler was purchased from the manufacturer and then renovated by the farm before they opened it in 2007. The drop and first turn on this coaster are really nothing to write home about, but the 2 airtime hills and the turnaround back into the station are really what shine. If you ride this in the back row, you're definitely going to get some solid sustained floater airtime on both of those hills, as well as some pretty good laterals as you come back into the station. If you're trying to get this credit, you definitely need to go check their website for their spring and fall festival dates, unless you're lucky enough to have your wedding there like my wife and I did. However, it's not the hardest credit to get in this state, but we're going to get back to that in a bit. Back to you, Drew.
Coming in at number 7, we're actually going to be heading back to Florida, this time to Kissimmee, to Fun Spot America Kissimmee and their kiddie coaster, another E&F Myler kiddie coaster, which in this case is completely overshadowed by Mind Blower just next door. This E&F Myler coaster is very, very similar to Sea Serpent, which I just covered. There is one key exception though. There's this cool helix right after the drop that gives you an awesome hand and head chopper, especially if you're on the taller side. And again, it offers a lot of cool lateral moments that you wouldn't expect from something so tiny. But this ride is the perfect first coaster for someone visiting the park, as after this you could hit up their spinning coaster and even move on to Hurricane, the bigger E&F Myler at the park. And of course, eventually you can work your way up back to Mind Blower. But kiddie coaster, it's a heck of a lot of fun, and you'll get at least 2 laps on it when you ride. It's a total win in my book.
At number 6, we head to Safariland in Villa Park, Illinois for Tiger Terror, a Wisdom Rides coaster that opened in 2002. As we walked into Safariland, it just seemed like your average FEC. However, to our surprise, when we got to the back corner of the building, we were greeted with a small waterfall and a statue of a tiger as we approached the coaster track. The coaster has a spiral lift hill followed by a very long and drawn out first drop, almost similar to the drop off the second lift on the Beast. At the bottom of that drop, is this ridiculously tight turn that provides one of the best moments of laterals I have experienced on a kiddie coaster. After that, there's a small airtime hill that goes under the spiral lift hill and provides a very nice head chopper effect. The last two turns also provide moderate laterals as well, but what really made this ride stand out to me was the atmosphere. The loud pumping music and the strobing LED lights that lined all of the walls around the coaster made this roller coaster deserving of this number 6 rating.
Heading back to Florida yet again for number 5, we're heading to Busch Gardens, Tampa for Air Grover. This Zero Force 190 was originally opened in 2010 and is realistically the largest kiddie coaster so far on the list. It features a nice booster lift hill, which gets you to the top of that hill fairly quickly, and a fun drop into 2 different helixes that provide a little bit more force than you might expect. Now, I've been on multiple of these models so far, as the newest of which opened at Sesame Place San Diego earlier this year. But I will have to give the edge to the Busch Gardens Tampa counterpart, just because it was the first one of these models that I went on. And maybe this was just the Florida heat, but I actually grayed out a little bit.
At number 4, we have the Runaway Train at Page's Crossing in Columbia City, Indiana, a Wisdom Rides coaster that opened in 2007. Upon sitting down in the train, you realize that there are no seatbelts and the lap bar will lock before it even touches your lap. This coaster is definitely one you want to experience in both the front and the back rows. As you go down the curved drop into the underground tunnel, the back of the train is treated as such strong airtime that will make you come completely off your seat and up into the lap bar. And at the same time, you're getting some moderate lateral forces from the curvature of the drop. Coming out of that tunnel and cresting over the top of the next hill, the front row then gets some very strong ejector airtime, just not any lateral forces quite yet. The next major element is this really small downward helix. In fact, it's so small that the front of the train is at the bottom of it by the time the back starts to come down. The lateral forces in the back row at this point are the strongest on the whole ride. The front row does get some really good laterals on the start of the upward helix that immediately follows it though. If you find yourself heading between Indiana Beach and Cedar Point, or just in the general Fort Wayne area, I would definitely recommend checking out Runaway Train. Time to throw it back to Drew for number 3.
Coming in at number 3, we're going to be heading to one of my home parks, Six Flags Magic Mountain, for one of 4 of their kiddie coasters, Canyon Blaster. This E&F Miler coaster opened in 1999 and features a staggering 8-foot top height and 10 mile per hour top speed. But holy cow, does this thing pack a punch. It's got a similar finale to Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, as it's constantly putting you through crazy airtime hills. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but man, it is way more fun than you'd expect for something that's only 8 feet tall. It even has a camelback airtime hill and a helix to boot. And of course, since it's made by E&F Miler Industries, it has a little bit of that lovable jankiness that'll push you around side to side and up and down in places you wouldn't expect. All I can really say though is this ride really punches over its limit and is generally fun even for someone that's not a kid anymore.
Winding up at the number 2 spot is my personal favorite kiddie coaster, the Riley. The Riley is a backyard roller coaster built by a guy named Gary at his house just outside of Tucson, Arizona. Gary built it about 6 years ago for his grandkids, and he was kind enough to let my wife, myself, and a couple of our friends come and check out both the Riley and this crazy manually powered spinning ride a couple months ago. The first hill after the drop features the strongest moment of airtime of any of my picks on this list, with the seatbelt feeling like it barely is keeping you from flying out. Honestly, I'd say the ejector is on par with some of the lower tier RMCs, it's that good. That airtime hill is followed by an awesome low to the ground turn with some really good laterals throughout it. The second half of the ride has a lift hill followed by one more drop and back to where Gary loads the coaster car. While it doesn't have a super long ride time, the strong airtime hill and the lateral filled turn on the Riley is what makes this roller coaster rank so highly for me. And as an added bonus, he gives everyone that rides it a shirt showing that you survived it, which I found to be quite fitting.
Hopping back to Southern California for number 1 on this list, we're going to Carlsbad for Legoland California's own Coastersaurus. This ride barely sneaks in as a qualifier in this category, as its max height is 18 feet with a top speed of 20 miles an hour. But this Gerstlauer kid-friendly coaster has some of the best theming of any kids coaster I've ever seen. There's giant Lego dinosaurs, tons of foliage, and even a nice lake feature that you do a helix around. Outside of being in an absolutely gorgeous setting that was even memorable as a little kid, you'll go around the circuit twice, which features some nice lateral forces and even quite a lot of airtime if you're towards the back on that first drop. This thing is really fast, really smooth, and really fun. And I can't lie, when I was playing Roller Coaster Tycoon as a little kid, I could say Coastersaurus was my favorite coaster for quite a long time. But with Coastersaurus being number 1, that officially ends our top 10 kiddie coasters list. And I wanted to ask, what is your favorite kiddie coaster? Or maybe what was the first coaster you ever rode? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, while you're down there, make sure to check out the description for all sorts of links, including the link over to Tim's channel so you can check up on Mattel Park construction updates. But speaking of which, Tim, you got any last thoughts?
For anyone interested in checking out the construction updates of Mattel Adventure Park, and specifically the Hot Wheels roller coasters they're building out there, go head over to my YouTube channel at Coasters and Cosplays. And I also just wanted to wish everyone a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Drew, happy Listmas.
Oh, happy Listmas to you indeed, my friend. It's been absolutely amazing so far, and you don't want to miss out on the other lists coming all December long. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and it's going to end with my top 25 coasters overall list on December 25th, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't. But of course, with that, I wanted to thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until the next day of Listmas, we'll see you on the next ride.